Hello. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be in the world. Gary Turner here. Hope you are doing well. The tune you can hopefully hear in the background is incredibly been mixed. Track for me personally called Kaleidoscope, mixed by Peter Griffiths, one half of The Mind Takeaway with his incredible other half, Mira. And why I wanted to go live today, there's been a lot of pieces, lots of weaves, lots of reflections really that I wanted to share with you in case of any value. Some really fascinating projects emerging alongside the day job. As many people know, I work in the chemicals industry, look after 20 million worth of business, really brilliant team that I work with. But we are an extractive industry, and we all know that there's a massive push on sustainability, there's a massive push on social justice, there's a massive push on diversity, equity, inclusion. Like, we are waking up en masse. We really, really are. But there's a lot of work to be done. And I just wanted to really just share some of my weavings, my understandings as to really what's been going on over the last few years in particular for me. But also in case an invitation for you, really just to join a few more dots that you may otherwise not have been joining. You may well have been joining them, but you may not have been. So what I want to do is I'll put a little pause on the wonderful track Kaleidoscope, and let me get into the first couple of things that I want to share with you today. What I'll also be looking to do is repurpose this live on the Activating Consciousness podcast. Appreciate that not everybody wants to sit in front of a screen, and certainly not everybody wants to sit in front of a screen staring at me. So what I'll do is I'll repurpose this conversation in case someone wants to listen to it on the podcast in the next few days. So what I want to share first of all is a couple of projects that I'm working on. One of which I'm just so excited about. If you follow me on LinkedIn, you might have seen a little bit about this earlier today. And what it is, it's the Fish Eye Cafe, which really is super exciting for me personally. And the reason this is so exciting is that it's a collaborative project with two people that have really been two of the best teachers for me personally in the last 18 months in particular. One being Samantha Sapaya, who's based down in Southeast Asia, based in Manila in the Philippines. She's really been helping guide me to really sense into, not just at a head level, but at an embodied, felt level in my heart, in my being, and really feeling the tension of having to navigate this collective illusion that we're all buying into, this collective belief that it'll be okay when, someone else sorts everything out. And, I fall into that as much as anybody else. But what Sam's been helping me do is really sense and understand and really get experiences, hearing directly from communities that are oppressed to keep us in the lifestyle that we've become accustomed to in the West. With no judgment, there's no shame intended, just like a real wake-up call. And we're going to be going deep in a lot of different areas with the first conversation and exploration between Sam, myself, and Lorraine. The title is Earthlings. Come and join us. Come and join our regulars, which include a whole range of non-humans. And I think you'll find this exploration deep, meaningful. I'm pretty sure it will drive you and us to connect and understand ourselves and our relationships in a very meaningful way. So that's one project that I'm really excited about, starting on the 18th of February 2022. The other thing I wanted to share with you, which I'm also equally excited about, is next Monday. If you're watching this live or you watch this back, hopefully before next Monday, the 7th of February, I've got another incredible conversation. Thanks again to my friend Brooke Errol, based in San Diego, who is of Turkish descent and origin, the same as Haluk, who will be joining me on Monday at midday, 12 o'clock UK. That's 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 1300 CET, 1500 Turkish time, and 1850 Indian Standard Time. And why this matters, again, I work within the chemicals industry. And I'm always on the lookout for curious, brave, insightful humans that are really ready to try and do things a different way. Again, it's so innocent, right? We're brought up from a really young age, get the grades, conform, don't challenge, fit in, inverted commas, lots of conversation about that at the moment. And we know in our body that when we're kids, when we're growing up, we've got the freedom, we can eat mud, we can fall off a playground, we bounce, we learn, and we grow. Yet the systems from a young age, from our parents, from society, from marketing, from advertising, right the way through the education system, we're just reduced to be this 1/100th of what we could possibly be. And I believe we are about to bust out of that in a major, major way. I wrote over a year ago about we're on the edge of a Moore's law exponential curve of consciousness. As my friend Helen Amory would state, and it's really a reminder. It's a remembering rather than a activating. But that's a wonderful conversation we had as part of episode 4 of the Activating Consciousness podcast. But really what I want to speak to here is that Hallett took the brave decision as a CEO to fire himself. Yeah, you heard that correctly. He'd said, I don't want to be at the top on my own, lonely, frustrated, not being able to be as creative as I otherwise would want to be able to be because I'm so busy thinking about how I meant to show up as this CEO. And what he did was just completely decentralize power and took on a self-managed approach. Again, the link to Brooke here, very, very strong. And Halleck's joining me, and I'm so excited. Next Monday, midday UK time, so that we can explore together as two peers that work within the chemicals industry right now in 2022. What's it like to completely operate in a purely self-managed basis? What's the impact on results? What's the impact on well-being? What's the impact on the planet? Going to be a brilliant conversation, and I hope that you'll join us. So there are two things that I'm super, super, super excited about. There's another one as well that I want to share with you. Good friend of mine and another personal inspiration is Tracy Fenton. So Tracy was introduced to me back in 2017 by my good friend Perry Timms, who was really one of my first catalysts after I had my spirit, what I now call the very clear spiritual bankruptcy, when I was completely hollow, right? Had the money, had the salary, had everything the outside world, back to that conditioning, everything that I was told mattered, had it all, inverted commas, felt empty, felt spent, felt like, what's the point in all of this? Not that drastic, what's the point in all of this, but my own version of that, really empty, really hollow. And what I realized on reflection is one of two things. It was a crossroads of, I get that midlife crisis that we love to talk about, or I got curious. And I'm really grateful for whatever reason, in the moment, I got curious. And Tracy was one of the people that opened me up massively when we went through this power question practice that she, her colleague Miranda, and all of the team at World Blue have developed over the years. And it really opened me up and made me realize back in 2018 how much I was holding myself back. And that was coming from a place of low self-worth in my mind. And what I'm really excited about is that Tracy's new book, Freedom at Work, comes out in March 2022. She'll be joining me 10 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock UK time on Monday, the 28th of February. And it's just going to be amazing to be back in dialogue with Tracy again. So I hope you'll join us on YouTube, on Twitter, or on LinkedIn, live and interactive. And it's just wonderful to, not everybody knows this, but I had Tracy Miranda at my wedding with my gorgeous wife, Jackie. That's how much these people mean to me. So there are three really exciting things. And if you think about those three things, right, move to self-management in a traditional industry, freedom at work, full democratic principles of organizing. Yeah, so those two things, plus the Fisheye Cafe with Samantha and Lorraine. None of that was planned, people. None of that was designed with intention. Yeah, a little bit of manifestation, maybe a little bit of signaling. But there's no way I could have predicted that these three things would be merging within the next 4 weeks at age 45. Yet it's all pointing to my word of the year. I don't normally do a word of the year, but integration is my word of the year. So I hope that you'll join us in any one of those three things. So that's what's really getting me excited personally. But what now I want to share with you is a few of these weavings. So what does all of this mean in the grand scheme of things? Now, what I put in the title of this conversation today is one of the biggest problems that I envisage personally as Gary Turner. We've just had a Bank of England interest rate rise to 0.5%. Yeah, 0.5% is not a big interest rate, It's been way, way higher, we know, in previous years. But, and this is the big but, when an interest rate goes up, of course, it's going to push the price of everything else up. But what that's also doing is impacting the people that can least afford it. Okay, that's a problem in and of itself. But the weird thing is, we're in this really strange paradigm where those that can least afford it, so we're talking about the people that keep society together, nurses, delivery drivers, food, food manufacturers, however we want to look at it, those that basically are keeping this society moving, the fabric, the stuff that mattered most when we were all locked down at home, who still went to work, toiled, kept us going, despite not being paid the best wages compared to the average, people like me. Where were those, where were those people? Like, where's the benefit? Where's the support? Why are they getting an interest rate rise right now? Why is the NHS wages being capped by the government when we actually had unconditional basic income basically for a year under the furlough scheme? These sorts of things really matter. And all at the same time, my industry and a lot of the stock markets are at all-time highs, if not highs of previous years. Like, something's not right. Maybe the systems are right for the few, but for the masses, something's not adding up. And I don't just want to give this as I don't want to misdirect or give fake information or fall under any sort of difficulty linked to Spotify, right? So this is Gary's personal opinion, okay? Don't string me up by it. Do your own research. But I'm going to give you some of my own research to show you how I'm joining these dots, okay? So why am I so passionate about this? One, I believe in equity. The people that are most oppressed in lands far away from our own, for me to speak to you through this laptop right now with the technology we're all using in this moment, people are being harmed thousands of miles away to get the gold, to get the iron ore, to get the nickel, to get the palladium, to get the lithium for electronic vehicles batteries. This is coming out of Bolivia. This is coming out of South Africa. This is coming out of the Congo. This is coming out of West Papua. I'll come back to that in just to the west of Papua New Guinea. It's coming from what we call the global south. The global south are the countries that are classed as developing, yet we in the West are, inverted commas, developed at their expense. Let me say that again. The companies that we state are developing in our Western parlance language, they are the ones who are suffering because we're stealing, basically, extracting their resources so that we can have the life that we have in the West. Yet we call them developing. I think we're the ones that are developing, to be honest. So these are a lot of the weaves that I'm really starting to sit in again. I'm passionate about it because I want us to be curious. I want us to be awake. I want us to be alive. I want us to really reimagine what good looks like in a truly connected, interdependent world, which is innate. That's what we're part of. But we're all buying into this, as Cornell Thomas and I spoke about before Christmas. The Matrix is real, people. Like, this isn't made up. It's not just a film. The Matrix is real. We are buying into it every single moment of every single day, including me. And this share is really just to try and offer a little bit of a different perspective to go and investigate. So that is sort of setting the frame. One of the other things I wanted then to speak about as well is, let me give you some of the facts. And this is the thing, financial markets. The financial markets, of course, are the lifeblood. Like, who gets capital, who doesn't, is decided around, your credit score. Am I able to get access to money? And are you able to get access to money? That's based on the credit score, which is based on where you live. Do you have previous year's addresses? Blah, 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 blah. There's all this system that wraps around that. But the people that have the most difficulty accessing money are those that don't have all of the things that the system says you need. So this is the challenge. This is the interesting challenge that we've got, is that the system really is gamed to help those that are already rich with resources get more resources, and those that don't have stay without. This is the problem. This is the systemic challenge. So let me share with you something just to bring this to life. And I found it really interesting because I hadn't thought about this myself, really. Let me see if I can try and bring this up. let me bring up my big energy mind map first of all. Hopefully you can see that. This is a mind map that I built myself. Just got really curious a year ago with Sam and with Lorraine, and just trying to work out who owns the most shares in big energy. So BP, Chevron, Marathon Oil, ExxonMobil, Total, etc. And what's really interesting is when you look at the institutional investors that own these companies, the ones that have the biggest stake in them, it comes back to three main companies most of the time. So what you're looking at, Chevron, Vanguard Group, nearly 8%, State Street Partners, 7%, BlackRock, 4.6%, Marathon Oil, Vanguard Group, 11%, State Street, 7%, BlackRock, 5%, BP, BlackRock, Vanguard, Exxon, Vanguard, State Street, BlackRock, Total, BlackRock, ConocoPhillips, Vanguard, State Street, BlackRock. The story goes on for big energy, and bearing in mind it's one of my suppliers. Like, it's downstream from these companies that I have a job. But the curious point is, if those three companies have the lion's share stake in all of those oil companies, that means that three companies pretty much control the oil supply, or certainly the direction of the oil supply, or equally have the power to redivert what those companies invest in. And that's what I'm really, really interested in. Is there's a lot of stuff around ESG, environmental sustainability, governance, moving towards more sustainable and even regenerative ways, if I use the language of Sam and Lorraine. But fossil fuels and extractive industries like my own are not regenerative. However, there's a lot of good work going on, and I know there's even great work going on within my own company. But the point of this share is my invitation to get curious, to really start to join the dots, that a load of this stuff is not what it seems. It really, really isn't. And the really, really bizarre thing is, this Vanguard Group, go and look them up on the internet. The Vanguard Group is what they call a fund of funds. So let me share with you what that actually is all about, because it's quite fascinating. Like, it's really quite intriguing. So, Chrome, hopefully I can find it here. Here we go. So the largest institutional investor in all of those big oil companies is a company called Vanguard Group. Vanguard Group it's a fairly unique structure, i.e. financial instrument, in terms of investment management companies. The company is owned by its funds. Sorry, do you have a question? I've got a question. Hashtag Ponzi scheme? How can a fund that owns almost 1/10 of all of those oil companies, how can that be owned by all of the other funds? Just weird. Just really, really weird. You may have a sensible answer. If you're BlackRock, State Street, or Vanguard Group, please give me an ethical, equitable reason why this is a thing. Just doesn't make sense to me. But I am just one human, being really, really curious, as you can see. So that's part of my curiosity, is around all of this, how the financial markets are actually made up. Just really, really fascinating. I'm going to come on some of the quotes from the Activating Consciousness podcast shortly to really bring this a bit more to life. But before that, I want to share, again, some more context to back up what I'm saying, and that this isn't just Gary having one of his moments. So what I'm going to share with you now, hopefully this will work, is the stock market performance of a number of the key global indices over the last few years. But I need to see if this will work or not. So let's have a little look. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to be working, which is a shame. I'm trying to share my PowerPoint right now, but it doesn't seem to be working. But basically, in essence, what you can see on this particular slide is that all of the indices naturally, as coronavirus hit early 2020, all the markets plummeted. If you look at the Dow Jones, go onto the Dow Jones website and look at the last 5 years' performance, Look at Amsterdam Euronext the last 5 years, the Shanghai Composite the last 5 years, the FTSE 100 the last 5 years. They are all trading at similar levels or better than they were trading pre-COVID-19 starting. That's fascinating to me. That's fascinating that while everybody else is really struggling, that this financial market is worth the same as, if not more money, during and post-COVID than it was before. It's weird. What questions do you have? What inquiry do you have coming to that realization? Because I just find it fascinating, and I think it tells us that the system really is set up. I benefit a lot from the system. You know, I can't complain. I've got so much privilege. But I'm curious. I would happily have the system completely fall over as it is, and then allow it to be built back up again in a more equitable way. Because it's just insane that some companies can be adding 20, 30, 50% on their bottom line in just 12 to 18 months, when others are now struggling just to pay for energy in their homes. This is the pain for me. This is the pain. So really interesting. So like I say, big oil connected to the financial markets, you know, connected to sustainability. It's just all going on. Really, really interesting. But again, I'm just curious. Like, I've got more questions than I've got answers. What's coming up for you as I share this? Any other thoughts, reflections? Do share with me. Again, this will be repurposed on the Activating Consciousness podcast, and I'm just sharing in case there's anything of value for you as I go exploring with these reflections. So what I wanted to do was come to some quotes, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to share my screen on this one. So far, not so good with regards my quotes that I wanted to share, which is very, very sad. Let me see if I can try and find them. Bear with me a second. So here we go. So here is, okay, so it's not sharing it. So I'm just going to share them. Sorry for looking down, but what I want to do is share some of these quotes with you. So these are all quotes that came from the first 15 episodes of the Activating Consciousness podcast, where I was very kindly joined by a whole range of different people, DEI specialists, consultants, senior leaders, and a whole range of other people. Oh, is it working? It might be working. Here we go. Let's have a little look. Oh, so you can see my list, but can you see the actual? Let's try and see. Let's try one more time. So close. Aha, here we go. This is me learning out loud and making mistakes as I go. So what I'm just desperate to share with you is some of these quotations that came from these conversations. They're just absolutely sensational. So, okay. No, it's not going to work. That's very sad. So I'm going to start sharing them with you. So the quotes are, this is from Sigrid Dyberg-Krajewski from episode 2 of the Activating Consciousness podcast. Differences can cause a lot of collaboration. Differences can also cause a lot of friction, but in friction you have innovation. It's absolutely stunning. Reese Byrne in episode 3. I think it's super important to be open and listening to people's experiences. If the person is open to telling you about their story, listen to it, because that will give you a deeper insight as to why they identify a certain way. Madison Butler, also from episode 3. None of us want to admit that we hired a bunch of people who are exactly like us because that's what makes us comfortable. Does that resonate with you? Does it not resonate with you? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Tanya Obeng in episode 12 shared that we've lost a sense of wisdom. There is wisdom in the old and the young. I think it's about experiencing that wisdom and learning from each other and losing this ageism and losing these labels. How often do I label something and therefore diminish or reduce it? Such a wonderful provocation. Reese Byrne again in episode, duplicating here. So Lisa Gill, episode 13. I hope that one of the things that comes out of this pandemic is that it causes us to question things. Have you questioned things more since the pandemic? I know I certainly have. Lisa also shared that at our core, I think we are empathetic, curious creatures. A lot of my work is supporting unlearning of that fear-based stuff that we piled on top of the human essence that we are. Before our fears, before our stories, we are 100%. We are innately connected. We are love. I totally believe that, and I know that's something that Helen Amory is a very big proponent of as well. Lisa also shared a beautiful example of how powerful it can be when we listen, when we connect with someone with curiosity and empathy, without an agenda. That can be a powerful way of shifting people's fears, biases, or assumptions about each other. Natasha Strongberg in episode 14 shared that if I were to describe a well-being economy, it is the economy of doing stuff rather than buying stuff. It's an economy based on the experience rather than stuff. I wonder how that resonates with you or otherwise. Please do, if you're following me live, do drop something in the comments, or if you're listening back, would love to hear from you as well. So next one, again from Natasha. We are the people making these rules, i.e. around the financial markets, and we can unmake these rules that do not serve us. Just think about that for a second. Nothing is fixed. Everything is malleable and pliable. It's all collective illusion. We uphold everything that makes society today through our collective belief. We don't have to believe it. We can challenge it. We can reimagine it. And I invite you and all of us to do that. Cornell Thomas, my brother from another mother, episode 15. We feel the same. Your thoughts change every millisecond. Feeling has a lot more impact and power than thought. And this reminds me of the incredible Donna Jones, a systems expert who shared with me once, heart math, well worth checking out, showing that, the frequency, the power of our hearts, the vibrations is far more powerful than anything that comes from the brain, which I think is particularly interesting. Excuse me. Cornell also shared, if you put your hand down first, that disarms me. Excuse me. Need a quick drink there. So yeah, if you put your hand down first, that disarms me. I then feel safe to show you my hand. This beautiful interplay between courage and vulnerability that comes up so often. Lorraine Smith shared, one of my collaborators for the Fish Eye Cafe, which starts on the 18th of February. There's a really interesting literature that would say that the beginning of the Industrial Revolution was not the steam engine, it was the plantation economy. And that was based on, of course, on slave labor. Just think about that. And just think about where we are right now in 2022. Is work as we currently do it much different to slave labor? Honestly, I would say, of course it is. It's nowhere near as directly linked. But do as you're told, narrow job spec, don't challenge. That's the prevailing system. Not for me, thankfully. I'm really grateful in my own organization that we've got a lot of flexibility, a lot of freedom and entrepreneurial spirit. But far too often the metrics, the well-being metrics, the sorry to say it, the mental health, the stress, the burnout rate show us that work is not working for far too many. So really something to get curious about there. Samantha, our other co-collaborator for Fish Eye Cafe, From the plantation economy to the birth of the slave trade, a very specific conscious decision was taken by a very specific group of influential people. These are the sites of cultural evolution. Very, very, very. Starting to lose my voice now. This has always stayed in my mind since Sam first shared this well over a year ago. This is powerful. Sam shared in episode 5 of the Activating Consciousness podcast. The answer to the paradox for me is collapse. There is no way we're transitioning. There is no such thing. We are going to be pushed into breaking point and then start again. What does it feel like to you right now with social justice, with climate breakdown, with the workplace ills that we have on, generally, the political system completely imploding? It feels like collapse, doesn't it, in many ways, in terms of the old ways, which I think is only going to be a good thing to give birth, I hope, to more egalitarian, more connected, more humane ways in line with nature's systems. But we'll have to wait and see. But it's a very, very interesting time, which I think speaks to Sam's point around collapse very, very vividly. Lorraine shared alongside this, let your mind go to the most beautiful places because your mind is endlessly regenerative. There, the power is limitless. Go there with your colleagues, your family, your pets. Just think about that for a second. When you dream, what's going on? When your mind wanders and you imagine things, what's going on there? Is that the brain? Genuine question. Because I see brain and mind interchange quite a lot. And I'm of the belief, increasingly over my own journey, that they are different things. So I'm interested what your thoughts are around that. So on to the next one. Donna Jones, again, mind-blowing insight. If you stand at the intersection of a bifurcation where the old system collapses and the new one is in co-creation mode, I'd say we're in the co-creation mode. We're in the space where we can decide how to participate and what happens next. That is a boatload of agency, people. There is nothing stopping you, me, speaking to our spouse, our bosses, our friends tomorrow to say, I don't think this is working. I believe there's a better way, and here's my ideas. Nothing to stop you at all. Will we do it though? Will I do it? I will do it. I promise you, I will do it. My invitation to you is, will you have that courage to speak your truth? Because the world needs it. Desperately, we need it now. So that's my invitation. Then we go on to another one from Donna, really putting all of this into perspective. Nature has got this phenomenally sophisticated technology. The planet has been resilient. It's been vibrant. It's been abundant for over 4 billion years. Let me say that again. The planet has been resilient and abundant for over 4 billion years. And yes, there have been cycles, but nothing like the cycle now that man has accelerated. In less than 100 years, we have literally more or less closed down our species on this planet. Fascinating. And now I have an interesting dilemma. I got it back. I had a moment there where I was like, eek, looks like I could be in trouble. So where am I? Look at that for a good shot. Stelio, who joined me and Donna on episode 8 of the Activating Consciousness podcast. This may sound provocative, but I really believe it. We think too much. I think we think too much. The only thing we should be is ourselves. That is something we do, not something we think about. What's coming up for you as you hear that quote and that reflection? Would love to hear from you. Excuse me. If you're here live with me, let us know anything that's resonating with you, anything you may challenge, or just drop me a DM. We'd love to hear what these in the moment reflections of the on these podcasts is having for you. Again, it's the Activating Consciousness podcast. You'll find it on your favorite podcast platform. Adrian Wetherell shared a very powerful reflection. during episode 6 of the podcast. Excuse me. What he shared was that we're becoming more awake, we're becoming more alive, we're becoming more aware of everything that we do on this planet. And we need to realize that business, society, community, personal relationships, they are all one. They are not separate entities. Do you separate you from your partner, from your job, from the food that you eat, from the holiday that you take? Because we shouldn't. They are all deeply connected and having an impact on one another. Really, really fascinating. Really fascinating. Carl Kaliman, who's done some really interesting work around consciousness, he shares that all life forms, this is in episode 7 of the Activating Consciousness podcast, all life forms are expressions of that consciousness. Small little bacteria are expressions of that evolution of consciousness. So interesting. So, next one, again from Carl Kaliman. And this comes back to this mind and brain piece. I'm really interested in your thoughts. The mind is not a product of the brain. The mind is something that the brain downloads from the cosmos. That changed human beings. Yes, spiritual. Yes, energy. Yes, deep. But like, that makes sense to me. Intuitively, it really does. You know, when I go running and I have those ideas, that's not my brain. That's not a program telling me to do something. That's come from nowhere, and that nowhere has to be outside of my sentient experience of life, I think. What do you think? We'd love to hear your thoughts. I love this. Helen Amory, again, alongside Perry, one of the people that really, really inspired me the most to come into the people and culture space. What she shared was that we are infinitely creative, and we can create separations, difference anywhere, and we can create any systems we want as well. So link back to that previous comment around the financial system. It doesn't have to be this way. We can collapse it all tomorrow and rebuild it all tomorrow if we've got the collective will. Also, what Helen shared, and this stage, these people are just amazing. I'm so grateful that they're in my world. But one of the other things that's interesting that Helen shared with me was that I don't see it as an activating, i.e. activating consciousness. I see it as a revealing. And that in the thinning of our confusion, that clarity that we already are gets revealed, like the metaphor of the sun and the clouds. I think there's something really beautiful about that, and it's actually absolutely spot on. I completely 100% agree that I should rename the podcast Revealing Consciousness. It's actually a way better signpost to what we're talking about, but I kept it as a name anyway. So, Nan Chowdhury, founder and CEO of Jaipur Rugs, he shared with me on episode 9 of the Activating Consciousness podcast, too much knowledge developed without practicing equals ego. Knowledge without practice can damage the business. So here's a challenge to people that I love, but also people that I don't even know, that are inverted commas, thought leaders. Thought leadership is great. Do leadership with that thought is critical. As he says, it's egotistical if you're not actually doing the work alongside it. So challenge, build, add. Would love your thoughts. Nan Chowdhury also shared that I'm sure that anything in business, if it is not driven by love, is not going to sustain. And if love is too strong a word for you, replace it with care, replace it with connection. It's all pointing in the same direction. And again, you can see on the bottom of the screen, if this sort of content, if this sort of exploration is interesting for you, have a look at my website, hexochangenow.com, one word. You can also subscribe there for regular updates on content, product offerings, and more. Excuse me. At this juncture, actually, I'm just going to very quickly share. There's an executive retreat coming up. If you're with me live or watching or listening back to this, 5th to the 7th of April 2022 in the beautiful Dorset countryside, maximum of 8 senior leaders, executives or business owners with a minimum of 4 people, a purely exploratory space to co-create an agenda with peers from across different sectors. And what we're really looking to do there is to review, to renew, and to reimagine together. If that's interesting, do drop me a DM. So, Samantha Sapaya, who joined me back on my very first episode of Activating Consciousness, It's like the seasons. Every day is a different day. How can I expect to be the same person every single day? Do you expect to be the same person every day? Do you allow yourself to become a different version? And in the moment, that might be for you a negative version. Well, that's down and frustrated, angry, depressed. That's fine. Just allow that to come through, center again, and then back on with whatever needs to emerge. Like, emotions are just data points on where our thinking and our experience of life is in that moment. They are not things to be attached to. I'm so crystal clear on that. So Samantha Spy also shared that every human system that exists on the planet today, there is nothing without injustice. That really comes back to this just incredible weaving that there's. If you go onto my YouTube channel, Gary Turner, a strategic advisor, I think it is, or Hexo Change. Sam introduced me to the West Papuan people down just to the west of Papua New Guinea, and I did a weaving and an investigation really around the gold mine there that is run by a combination of Rio Tinto from Australia and Freeport from the US. And unfortunately, there's quite a lot of oppression and even genocide taking place down there between the Indonesian government and the local West Papuan people. They just want to live in line with nature's systems. They want to be able to manage their resources as they see fit, yet they're being dominated. And they're part of my ethical investment fund, but that's for another conversation. If any of this stuff's interesting, the systemic exploration, you can drop me a DM and I'll happily send you a range of the other reflections that I've been making in recent months. And that brings me to pretty much the end of what I wanted to explore tonight. I can't believe I'm nearly at 40 minutes, like a keynote talk. So I really hope you found some value. I think a few people have joined live on different platforms as I've gone by. I appreciate it's a weavy, exploratory, seems not to be particularly joined up. But you know something? It actually is. It's deeply joined up. And I wish you a great morning, afternoon, evening. Again, consider joining me for the executive retreat or inviting your senior leaders in to that executive retreat between the 5th and 7th of April 2022. I'll be co-facilitating my good friend Joe Homstead, founder of Connect Up. And we're really looking there to, with empathy, create the conditions for those most senior leaders within our organizations that probably don't have the space to sense and feel and practice and embody the change that they know needs to come. Take care, everyone. Check out hexochangenow.com. Much love.